quite a bunch of work on. So Technicolor acquired MPC a number of years ago. As you may or may not know, Technicolor is already a global business, or was at the time, and largely based on its film services and other post-production services. But there were creative studios also in different parts of the world doing animation and visual effects. And I think at the time they were searching for some place that could re-energize that effort, or be sort of a kernel or a core for that new energy, and that's where they came and purchased MPC. And then since then they have facilitated the growth globally that we're undergoing right now. The changing game. So why is MPC becoming a global company? What's going on that dictates this? Well, as you've already heard, animation and visual effects are now everywhere. They're in films where you don't even know it. Normal dramatic movies have scenes that require visual effects. Obviously there's the gaming sector, there's animated TV series, films. There's really so much content, and the appetite globally is growing and becoming unified, as was mentioned before. So there's obviously a new volume that needs to be created. That means for the average company like ours, more shots, higher complexity, a much higher visual quality expected now than even I'd say 5 years ago, and they want it done very fast and they want it done very cheap. The more shots and the fast, those two elements, I think, are the biggest thing everybody needs to recognize. We have films like this Narnia one we've just done. I think 5 years ago, that was a 600 to 700 shot visual effects film. And it came in as 1,300 shots. I don't think the script normally that I read made me think, oh, this is 1,300 shots. And so we all have to recognize that the volume is going up. In visual effects, we're being depended upon more than ever to produce much more volume, and that requires a kind of different mentality. Also, faster. Having to do things faster has all sorts of implications all up and down the studio in terms of how you build, how you account for spikes of production, how you crew, how you train, how you specialize, and how you project manage. Pipelines, everything. I mean, everything you do needs to become very reliable. You need to constantly, project after project, have a baseline of operation that you're improving upon. It used to be the case that because of time, anytime you were asked to innovate a new visual effect, you had plenty of weeks in your schedule to make mistakes and to try things and fail and try again and fail. That's not really an option any longer. They not only expect us to know what we're doing, no matter what they want us to do, but typically advise the studio director and production on methodologies right from the beginning. And so we're really being seen as a proper source of knowledge now, as opposed to this really cool experimental area of work where we were constantly trying to do new things. That's really no longer the mentality in our clients' heads any longer, so it makes a big difference. Obviously, tax situations and financing are one of the biggest drivers of where awards are made globally and how large projects are divided and awarded to different areas. Every single project that comes out of Hollywood is trying to meet a budget, and they're trying to figure out where can we shoot that has stages we can rent and a crew that we can hire and will give us a good tax break, and what are the rules of that government for how we also qualify for our post-production work. And it's a very complex thing that every single film seems to grapple with and try to come up with a solution for, and we need to be part of that solution That's part of why we have a fairly unique offer at MPC in that we have locations in Vancouver and London, which are two really good tax situations for people. The other thing is, myself coming from California, then going to New Zealand to work at Weta Digital, then coming to London, I've worked with people from all over the world at every facility I've been a part of. But what's new now for companies in California is obviously India, Vancouver, Indonesia, Europe, all over the world there are now competitors for the same work. And that changed the game for everybody who was traditionally doing this work. So we need to make money. We want to produce great movies. We consider ourselves an A-level company. We want to do the most awesome looking, realistic, and beautiful visual effects in the world. And very importantly, we need to add value to every project that we work on. The idea of it as a service business is a little bit antiquated. You really do need to add creative value as a part of the main production team. And we want directors to enjoy working with us. We need to offer them a good experience, and we need them to really want to come back again and again. We also need to attract and reward talent. It's an enormous cycle. You need to get good projects, which get you good talent, which give you good results the next time, which attract another good director, which attracts a good project, and it just goes like that. And you can either spiral up that cycle or you can spiral down very quickly, and you have to be quite careful. So our new approach to this is a global offer, as I've been saying, a creative culture that we have within the company that we originated in London and we're trying to turn into trainable methodology on all of our sites. It's obviously critical to cultivate talent locally in every place that we operate in. We need to take a workflow and we need to make a system out of that workflow so that we can not only work on multiple sites, but that project to project we're getting better at how we do it and we're producing good results. The other nice thing about having multiple sites that was a surprise to me, but turns out to be a really big positive, is that the sites can support each other when there are volume peaks and valleys, and it's a really important part of this. Any of you who run a facility of any kind producing work will understand that since every project has different demands upon the creative team, it becomes a big challenge to build a team that can specialize and be flexible. In fact, when you get to a large size and you get to a certain quality level, you have to look at specialization. There's just no way you can hire 400 people who are all good at everything. It just doesn't happen. It's not the way they make movies, it's not the way we do animation or visual effects. The problem with specialization is, for example, on Narnia, I had an animation team of 40 people, and now that team has shrunk down to our core group. We've had as many as 100 animators. It fluctuates, and so we have a core staff, and then we have a freelance group as well. Now, what was really nice on Narnia was that our Vancouver office had a surplus of compositors at one point, and so they were looking for something for them to do, and so we gave them a sequence because London didn't have enough compositors, and so it's been a really nice thing to kind of pull weight for each other when needed. The other big thing is support technologies. There's an awful lot of overhead technologically to support a global business in terms of synchronization of data. It's an ongoing issue. We have people who specialize in it and are working on it all the time. As well as pipeline, which I'll talk about shortly, meaning the kind of underpinnings and common workflows and tools that everybody uses. Seamless to the client. I honestly didn't write that slide this morning. I wrote it last night. It is the proper term and way of thinking of it. We do not want the client thinking about this global offer. We want the studio and the business awarding to us based on the global offer and some of the tax benefits and the security. We don't want the director thinking about it, and we don't want the visual effects supervisor thinking about it. Ultimately, the goal is one team of artists working together around the world on one or two projects at the same time without any kind of real implication to workflow or the results. So what were the seeds of this growth and this plan? Well, 8 years ago I got to MPC, and I actually had just come from the Lord of the Rings films and was very tired. I had worked for about 4 years on growing that company and producing all these crazy effects, and MPC was looking for somebody to help them develop an animation and character practice. So I went there, but I didn't quite realize what I was in for and what kind of growth London was undergoing at the time. But what I found there, and the reason I'm still there, is that there's a real genuine enthusiasm out of that studio. I've always worked with people from all over the world, but London is a kind of a special mix of people as well. You've got people from all over Europe. It's a very, very highly trained artistic community there. There's also a decent technology training, but I think you've got especially, and I want to place an emphasis on this, an especially strong tradition of fine arts training in Europe, which has an enormous value to the European practices. It's very easy to teach somebody software. It's very difficult to teach them creative literacy, how to talk about images, how to compose, and how to design work, okay? Oh, that was the next point. And then they were also incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, depending on how you want to think about it. They were taking on things that they really shouldn't have done, and I thought that was really cool. That's kind of the place I had come from in California as well, was let's do something super cool. That's the whole point. Like, I saw Star Wars, the very first Star Wars, when I was 7 years old, okay? And that changed my life. That when I saw that movie, it opened up my head to a part of my imagination, and it created an experience that I still to this day, you know, just hope for. Every time I go into the movie theater, I'm hoping I'm going to have that same experience, and I don't get it very often. And so there's a kind of an attitude towards doing this work which says, yes, it needs to be real and look photoreal and be very high quality, but let's not be conservative. Let's not do the basic things. Let's do the impossible stuff. Let's do the crazy stuff, because that's kind of the whole point of it. And these were people who were not only into that same ethos about why we do it and what we're trying to do, but they were willing to make huge technology leaps and commit lots of programming resources to big problems that needed to be solved. So now MPC has sort of become this global open house for filmmakers and the people who work there. We kind of think of it as the open house because we encourage filmmakers to engage with us at a very deep level, coming into the facility, being a part of it, making a connection to directors very early on in the process. And the whole point of it is that we want to be, for the filmmaker, an extension of the film unit that they already have. So the typical director in Hollywood has their DP, their production designer, their visual effects supervisor, who's really common these days because that person is organizing the work of many studios. We want to be just part of that team. And in the case of this last Narnia film, we very much were. We did all kinds of previs, we did all kinds of design work. And so we like to think of ourselves as an open facility, as part of the filmmaking process. We've evolved from this really scrappy, enthusiastic team of people to now a sort of disciplined, departmentalized, specialized workforce. And what I think we are evolving year on year is the sort of technical practice that backs that up. So we've kind of organized ourselves in a new way, and then we're sort of fitting the technology underneath that, and I'll get into that shortly. And the big point is MPC is a work in progress. We aren't done. We're still tuning and changing things and trying things out, because the field is changing and the challenge is changing, and we have to be while I think MPC now is globally nearly 1,000 people, we have to also remain sort of agile in how we refit and retool ourselves as a business. I'm just going to talk very quickly about London itself.